The moment consciousness stirs, the world feels wrong. A heavy stillness clings to everything, a darkness thicker than night itself, swallowing out lines, muting sounds, and pressing against the skin like a silent warning from something forgotten. In this unsettling void, the sudden realization arrives. No electricity hums, no wind breathes, no birds stir. It is as if creation has paused mid-breath, leaving humanity suspended in a moment outside familiar time. This imagined awakening is not merely fiction, but echoes the most mysterious ancient prophecy one whispered across centuries, cultures, and continents foretelling 7 days and nights when the world would drown in total, suffocating darkness. The prophecy's roots stretch far deeper than modern fear. It is carved into the stories of forgotten civilizations, spoken by mystics, and preserved in sacred texts that describe a darkness not symbolic, but tangible, transformative, and deeply unsettling. Among the most evocative origins lies the legend tied to the Seven Mountains of Giang in Vietnam, a region enveloped by spiritual folklore and believed to be a place where earthly realms and unseen forces converge with eerie intensity. These mountains, rising like ancient guardians, have long been associated with portals of transition, where seekers claim to encounter visions, warnings, and omens that hint at cycles of renewal and collapse beyond human understanding. For generations, local spiritual traditions described an era when the light would fade completely, not due to storms or eclipses, but from a cosmic shift foreseen by sages who left cryptic messages scattered across temples and caves. The stories from Giang intertwine with global mythic patterns. Similar prophecies appear in Western esotericism, referencing a period when celestial alignments disrupt the natural order, plunging humanity into a trial of endurance and revelation. Ancient Hermetic writings speak of a veil of unbroken night descending upon the world when humanity strays too far from balance, marking the beginning of a purification cycle that would reset collective consciousness. In other regions, indigenous traditions recount tales of the sun's retreat, describing moments when the sky refused to shine until humanity remembered humility, unity, and reverence for forces larger than mortal comprehension. Even certain early religious texts describe cosmic darkness not as punishment, but as a threshold moment, a gateway into a transformed age where survival depends not on strength but on clarity of spirit and intention. Through these interwoven traditions, the prophecy of 7 days of darkness emerges not as an isolated myth, but as a global echo, repeating across eras and civilizations with remarkable consistency and symbolic power. Modern scholars, however, do not agree on whether these prophecies are literal or metaphorical. Some argue the darkness represents societal collapse, ignorance, or the human soul's detachment from moral light. Yet others believe the event could be real or rare. Cosmic phenomenon, perhaps triggered by solar anomalies, atmospheric disturbances, or astronomical alignments capable of temporarily extinguishing the world's familiar illumination. Those who support a literal interpretation point to historical precedents, noting sudden unexplained darkening events recorded by ancient observers, which could have inspired prophecies later magnified into monumental predictions. Researchers also examine natural possibilities such as volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, or geomagnetic events that could conceivably produce a prolonged blackout, leaving civilizations bewildered and vulnerable in pitch-black uncertainty. Yet none of these fully explain the prophetic specificity of 7 days and nights, a duration repeated in multiple traditions as though derived from a common source older than recorded history itself. Ever-symbolic interpreters, meanwhile, highlight the number 7's spiritual resonance, representing completion, cycles, and transformation across cultures, suggesting the prophecy describes inner darkness rather than a physical one. To them, the darkness is a metaphor for humanity's collective descent before renewal, the moment when society confronts the shadows it has created and seeks the light of understanding beyond chaos. But those who trust ancient mystics insist the prophecy should not be softened or reinterpreted solely through metaphor. warning that ancient texts often encoded literal truths within symbolic language for protection. Throughout centuries, stories depict humanity experiencing overwhelming darkness as both terror and opportunity, a moment when illusions vanish. Revealing truths otherwise concealed by the distractions of everyday light in Vietnam's 7 Mountains, pilgrims describe visions of a world covered by an impenetrable night, where voices whisper guidance, and where the boundary between physical reality and spiritual dimension dissolves completely. These accounts echo mystical experiences found in esoteric traditions in the West, where practitioners speak of the Great Shadowing, a cosmic event predicted to realign humanity's destiny through a trial of darkness. Some see this alignment as part of cyclical cosmic mechanics, where celestial bodies shift into rare formations that temporarily disrupt the natural flow of energy-sustaining earthly light. Others propose more mystical explanations that the darkness emerges from a spiritual withdrawal, where divine or cosmic forces recede to test humanity's resilience, forcing people to navigate a world without external guidance. Whatever the interpretation, the prophecy remains uniquely powerful because it touches a fundamental human fear: the loss of light, the collapse of certainty, and the return of primordial chaos lurking beneath civilization's thin veneer. The thought of 7 days without sunlight evokes ancient instincts, reminding us of a time when early humans feared the night as a realm of predators, spirits, and unknown dangers. This fear was not irrational. Many ancient cultures believed darkness allowed otherworldly entities to roam freely, a moment when the borders between realms dissolved, exposing humanity to forces normally kept at bay. Even today, psychological studies reveal how extended darkness can distort perception, fracture reasoning, and induce deep emotional vulnerability, proving the ancients understood far more about human nature than previously assumed. This psychological dimension may have influenced the prophecy's lasting survival, reinforcing the idea that darkness is not merely absence of light, but a confrontation with everything hidden both within and beyond the self. Yet the persistence of similar prophecies across unrelated cultures suggests something deeper than psychological insight, perhaps an ancient memory, a collective imprint of a catastrophic event once endured by early humanity. Some theorists propose that prehistoric societies may have survived an extended blackout caused by cosmic or geological events, embedding the experience into myths that evolved into universal prophetic warnings. Archaeological records reveal abrupt climate shifts, unexplained sky darkening episodes, and strange anomalies that align eerily with descriptions found in ancient myths of darkness, bolstering arguments for historical roots behind the prophecy. If such an event occurred, it would explain why cultures across continents preserved warnings of darkness as a recurring cycle rather than a singular anomaly, preparing future generations for its eventual return. The 7 Mountains of Njiang, with their traditions of spiritual pilgrimage, appear to represent one of the world's surviving guardians of this ancient memory, maintaining rituals that honor the prophecy's profound significance. Visitors describe feeling an overwhelming sense of timelessness there, as though the mountains themselves retain echoes of forgotten eras, vibrating with energy that defies ordinary explanation. Elders from local spiritual lineages speak of ancestral warnings passed down through generations, urging people to maintain inner light, as physical light may someday disappear without warning. Such teachings suggest the darkness prophecy serves not purely as prediction but as guidance, preparing humanity to endure moments when the world's physical order collapses, and only the strength of spirit remains. This perspective bridges literal and symbolic interpretations, proposing the event may manifest physically while also demanding profound emotional and spiritual resilience from those who survive it. In Western esoteric texts, the darkness is described as the night of reckoning, a temporal void in which humanity confronts forgotten truths, revealing both hidden corruption and dormant potential within society. Some mystics believe the darkness amplifies intention, making every thought and emotion powerful, capable of shaping outcomes in ways normally limited by material constraints. If so, 7 days of darkness would become not only a test of endurance, but a battlefield of consciousness, where internal conflict manifests outwardly, shaping the emerging world after the light's return. This idea reappears in Asian spiritual traditions, where darkness symbolizes the womb of transformation, the space before rebirth, where chaos reorganizes into new creation. The prophecy then becomes a symbolic representation of cosmic renewal, a collapse preceding a new cycle, urging humanity to release old patterns before stepping into an era of awakening. Yet the literal threat lingers. Scientists studying solar behavior observe that rare but possible solar phenomena could create prolonged global blackouts, disabling infrastructure and leaving the world in deep darkness. Geomagnetic storms strong enough to disable satellites and grids could effectively darken civilization, closely mirroring the conditions described in ancient warnings, though without cosmic mysticism. Although unlikely to last exactly 7 days, such events create unsettling parallels, suggesting ancient prophecy and modern science may not be as unrelated as once believed. The mystery deepens when considering that many ancient cultures were exceptional sky observers, capable of predicting eclipses, comets, and celestial cycles with astonishing precision centuries before telescopes existed. It is plausible they witnessed an extraordinary astronomical event and encoded warnings in symbolic language, preserving knowledge that now appears as prophecy but may have once been grounded in observation. If their predictions hold any truth, then the darkness prophecy reflects not only metaphysical insight but ancient scientific wisdom passed through myth and ritual. This dual nature, scientific and spiritual, makes the prophecy uniquely compelling, bridging rationality and mysticism in a way few ancient narratives can achieve with such enduring force. Humanity's fascination with apocalyptic imagery reflects a deep curiosity about the unknown, especially phenomena that challenge our sense of control, reminding us of our fragility within the vast universe. The prophecy's persistent relevance suggests we recognize, at some instinctive level, that the world is not as stable as it appears and that cycles of darkness and renewal may be woven into existence. Imagining a planet plunged into absolute blackness forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about dependency on technology, illusions of safety, and the thin divide separating civilization from chaos. It also invites introspection, challenging viewers to consider how they might endure such a moment, emotionally and spiritually, should the darkness ever materialize beyond mythic imagination. The 7 days and nights represent more than a countdown. They symbolize a passage through uncertainty, transformation, and revelation, whether interpreted literally or metaphorically. What remains undeniably powerful is the prophecy's ability to inspire reflection on humanity's path, urging us to examine the light we carry within when the external world grows dim. Whether a cosmic event awaits or whether the true darkness lies in our collective choices, the ancient prophecy continues to whisper a timeless message: light, whether physical or spiritual, must be guarded vigilantly. And as the world grows more uncertain, the echoes of the prophecy grow louder, reminding us that every era faces its darkness. Yet each darkness carries the seed of awakening for those willing to see beyond fear. In the end, the mystery of the 7 days and nights remains unsolved, suspended between myth and possibility, urging humanity to prepare not through fear, but through awareness and resilience. For if the ancient warnings hold truth, the darkness is not merely coming, it is part of a cycle older than memory, returning not to destroy, but to transform everything we think we know about existence. This is the power of the final prophecy, echoing from mountains, scriptures, and forgotten civilizations, inviting us to confront the unknown and remember the light waiting beyond the darkness.